When you think of a great spiritual teacher, what comes to mind? Probably someone pretty serious, right? Somber, maybe. But there's one figure who completely breaks that mold. One who offers a philosophy born not in some quiet monastery, but on a battlefield, and whose life was just filled with mischief and love and laughter. So let's dive into the fascinating, contradictory world of Krishna.
So the big question is, who was this guy really? Was he a prankster who loved stealing butter, a divine lover dancing with his devotees, or this profound philosopher delivering one of the world's greatest spiritual texts? Well, the thing is, the answer is, yeah, all of the above, and that's exactly the point.
I mean, look at this. On one hand, you've got these stories of Krishna as a kid, always getting into trouble, playfully stealing butter, which is really a symbol for stealing the hearts of his followers. Then you have Krishna, the divine lover, whose dance with the gopis represents the soul's incredible, ecstatic union with God. But then, on the other hand, you have Krishna, the supreme guide, standing in a war chariot, about to deliver a masterclass on life, death, and duty.
And that, right there, is what makes him so unbelievably unique. While so many religious paths can feel kind of world-denying, focused on sorrow and suffering, Krishna's approach is this radical, total acceptance of life. His is what you might call a laughing religion, one that embraces life in its totality. And this philosophy is never more clear than in a moment of absolute crisis.
So let's go to that moment. Picture this. We're on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Two enormous armies are facing each other, ready for a catastrophic war. And these aren't strangers. They're cousins, family. And the greatest warrior of his time is about to have a complete and total breakdown. And that warrior is Arjuna. He looks out across the battlefield, and he doesn't just see an enemy army. He sees his family, his teachers, his cousins, the elders he's looked up to his entire life. And the sheer weight of what he's about to do, it just crushes him.
You can just feel the anguish in his words. He literally drops his bow and tells his charioteer, who happens to be Krishna, that he can't fight. He says there's no victory here, only sin and sorrow in killing his own relatives. So this isn't just a crisis of war. It's a deep, personal crisis of duty versus love, of ethics versus emotion.
And this brings us to a question that I think we all face, in big ways and small. What do you do when your responsibility, your dharma, forces you to make a choice that feels fundamentally wrong, a choice that just tears you apart inside? Well, it's an answer to this universal problem that Krishna gives his most famous teaching.
Now, Krishna doesn't just tell Arjuna to, get over it or ignore his feelings. No, instead, he offers a completely new way of thinking about action itself, a path that can free him from the paralysis of his own despair.
He speaks this iconic verse from the Bhagavad Gita. Now, even if you don't speak the language, you can kind of feel the power in those words, can't you? It's a line that holds the key not just to Arjuna's dilemma, but to a really profound way of navigating life itself.
So what does it mean? Basically, it translates to, you have a right to perform your duties, but you are not entitled to the fruits of your actions. And that is the heart of karma yoga. It is such a profound shift in perspective. The focus isn't on winning or losing, it's on the action itself.
So, okay, how does this actually work in practice? Krishna lays out a really clear path. First up, fulfill your duty. For Arjuna, that means being a warrior fighting for what's right. But then, and this is the crucial part, you have to act without being attached to the outcome. You have to be free from the desire for victory and the fear of defeat. And finally, you do it all as an offering, without your own personal gain being the motive. Now, what's really interesting here is that this whole idea of selfless action, it's actually just one piece of a much, much bigger and even more radical philosophy. It's about moving beyond our constant need to divide the world into good and bad, right and wrong, and instead embracing the whole picture. You know how our minds just love to create divisions, right? We separate the body from the soul, war from peace, even life from death. We see them as opposites, constantly in conflict. Krishna's philosophy, it just says no to all that. He unites them. The body isn't the enemy of the soul, it's the soul's visible form. And war, in this context, becomes a necessary part of the larger dance of life, just like peace is.
And this idea points directly to the core message. True spiritual freedom doesn't come from choosing one side and rejecting the other. It comes from what's called choiceless acceptance. You accept the totality of life, with all of its beautiful, messy contradictions. But there's one major barrier that stops most of us from doing this. And that barrier is the ego, or in Sanskrit, ahamkar, which literally means the I maker.
This is that false sense of self that believes, I am the one doing things. I am the one winning or losing. It's the part of us that gets all wrapped up in the outcomes and ultimately creates our suffering.
And the Gita is super clear on this. It says that all actions are really being performed by the forces of nature, but the person who's deluded by their ego thinks, I'm the one in charge. This delusion, this whole I am the doer mindset, that's what traps us in this endless cycle of anxiety and disappointment.
So here's the bottom line. The path Krishna is laying out here is all about profound humility. It's about recognizing that we are just one part of a much larger cosmic play. And our role is to act our part with excellence and dedication, but without the arrogant belief that we're the ones directing the whole show.
All right, so what does all this ancient battlefield philosophy mean for us today, right here, right now? How does accepting contradictions and acting without attachment actually apply to our modern lives?
Well, for one, it offers a refreshing alternative to some of those guilt-ridden or life-denying worldviews we see. It's a joyful kind of spirituality that doesn't ask you to reject the world, but to engage with it fully, playfully, and without that heavy burden of ego. It's about finding the divine in everything, from a dance to a battle.
So the ultimate shift this philosophy is offering is all about how we approach life's challenges. Instead of agonizing over every choice, trying to perfectly separate the good from the bad, this way of thinking invites us to just see the whole picture, to understand that pain and pleasure, success and failure, they're really just two sides of the very same coin.
And that really leaves us with a final thought to chew on. In our own lives and our own conflicts, both the ones inside us and the ones out in the world, what would change if we stopped trying so hard to win by choosing a side, and instead found our freedom by embracing the whole, complex, beautiful reality of it all?